2 years ago, I posted this how-to on my channel and it's become my most viewed video. It includes this terrible crash. This past March, I was in Sedona for the Mountain Bike Festival, instructing a group of riders on how to do big step-ups, when a group of riders came in the opposite direction and were dropping in when this happened. If you're gonna mountain bike, you're gonna come across some drops, so this video will give you some tips to handle them safely. Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to the channel, and if you're a first-time viewer, my name is Jeff Lanowski. Today I'm at Mountain Creek Bike Park and I want to talk to you about tackling one of my favorite features, drops. Alright, so here's the game plan. We're going to get started on these progression drops behind me. They're nice and flat and predictable. I'm going to give you some tips on how to tackle these types of drops, and then we're going to go on the mountain and off the mountain and look for a variety of different drops, because not all drops are created equal. So I'm going to break down the nuance of each one and tell you the skills that you'll need to apply to each to handle them safely. The first technique to learn is off a flat, predictable takeoff. This technique is very repeatable and uses very little body movement. Let's look at the two most common mistakes first: lifting your front wheel too high too soon, and the dreaded hop off the end. Lifting your wheel too high too soon gives it more of a chance to drop. And with the hop, you get unnecessary height and risk tagging your back wheel on the drop. Let's talk about doing drops the proper way, which also happens to be the easiest. When you approach a drop, your weight should be centered mostly through your pedals. Light hands, heavy feet. Your weight is mainly in your hips, which is spread out between both wheels. Your body weight is centered between those two contact points. If you were to ride to the end and do nothing, your weight would still be in front of your rear axle and it would push the front end down. The proper way is to wait until your front end is just about to leave the edge and then subtly slide your weight down and back so that your hips are behind the axle. Practice on something low enough and work on your timing. The longer you wait, the less you need to shift your weight back. Increasing your speed also reduces the amount you'll need to shift back. Keep your arms straightish to hold up the front wheel. Remember, you're not trying to lift it, you're just trying to keep it from falling too fast. Alright, quick change of pace for this next example. So once you've mastered drops off of flat, predictable surfaces by scooting your butt down and back in order to keep the front end up, now it's time to introduce a little bit of a preload before you do the drop. Notice the difference? Now the point of the preload isn't to jump or get any extra height. We're still trying to minimize drops and make them as small as possible when we're just trying to get proficient at them. But by preloading your bike, it'll allow you to be a little bit more weightless as you leave the takeoff. It'll give you the ability to soak up any inconsistencies in the ground. So when you roll into a drop, if it's perfectly flat takeoff, you could just scoot your butt down and back and breeze off of it. But if it's inconsistent, if there's any kind of disruption in the ground, you're gonna wanna preload to unweight your bike and allow you to do that drop a lot safer. The example I'm gonna use for that is putting a 2x4 at the end of the drop. And since that's probably not a good idea to do at a public bike park, we're gonna do it here at the band shell in my town. Here's a couple attempts with no preload. Look familiar? And here's a few attempts with a preload so that my bike can float over the 2x4 a little easier. Now, it's debatable whether they hit their butts on their rear tire as well, but preloading will get you in a higher riding position and avoid that situation altogether. Now let's take it to the trail. All right, so this right here behind me is one of the most challenging drops at Mountain Creek. It's not the biggest, but it's very technical. So some of the things it has going against it. It has a turn coming into it, which makes some riders feel uncomfortable carrying enough speed. If you take the main line, it's over a rock, so it has a completely undulating surface, which could hang up your back tire, and it also has a pretty flat landing. So there's a few things that I'm going to want to do to nail this drop properly. Take the turn smooth so I can carry enough speed. I'm going to want to make sure that I preload my bike before the rock so that my bike is slightly unweighted so it's not hanging up on those riding surfaces as much. And I don't want to preload and get extra height, because since this thing is such a flat landing, I don't need to make it any higher than it already is. So let me push my bike up the hill and give this one a shot. With a little bit of speed and a light stance on the pedals, I'm able to push through this disrupted takeoff. Remember this Sedona drop? I roll in with my weight centered over the pedals in a neutral position. As I come up on this bumpy takeoff, I do a preload that allows me to float over this stuff in a much taller riding position. I shift my weight back, extend my arms, and land it safely. All right, so once you've started to feel comfortable on flat drops, it's inevitable at some point you're gonna come across a downward sloping drop, and that takes a different skill set than what you would do on something flat. This is a perfect place to progress because it's a flat ladder bridge, so there's not gonna be any kind of changes in the terrain that's gonna affect your takeoff, and the drop off the end isn't super high, so the fundamentals are all gonna be the same. So let's break down what it's gonna take to conquer this style drop. The problem with downward drops is that gravity and momentum are sending you in this direction, and you typically want to go in this direction. So in order to accomplish that, you need to do a big preload with your arms. Here's Cody. He's a member of my Trail Boss Collective online coaching group, giving it a couple tries. He's preloading with his arms and legs, and it's giving him extra height and makes the landing much too harsh. On the approach, my butt is high and back because of the downslope. As I get close to the edge, I bend my elbows and move my chest to the handlebars and give a big push off. This allows me to get into a similar position as I would be on a flat drop. Here's the flat drop, and here's the downward slope with the angle adjusted so that you can see my body position relative to the riding surface. All right, this is a super technical drop feature. This is a downward sloping rock, so it's going to be less predictable than the ladder bridge. The drop is a lot more sizable, probably going to be close to 4 feet, and for the most part, it's to flat. Very slight downslope. So when I roll into this, just like the last drop, I'm going to come in at a controlled speed. I'm going to creep my chest towards the handlebars and allow them to preload a little bit. And then when I get real close to the end, I'm going to push off the handlebars. That's going to unweight my front end and allow me to lift it. And then I'm going to push it away so that instead of going straight down like it would naturally want to do, I can get a little bit further out. It's going to help me do that drop. And then since it's a flat landing, I'm going to go to my front wheel on purpose. But the trick is going to be to make sure that you're not going in at too steep of an angle, that you're going at a nice shallow angle, and then you could use your suspension to smooth out the landing. So let me hop up there, get on my bike, and give this one a shot. As I roll in, my elbows bend, my chest comes to the bars, big preload, push off the handlebars to unweight the front end. My butt and hips are already back, so I lift the front end and land smoothly. There you have it, my tips for tackling all types of drops from easy to difficult. With a little bit of practice, you can dial in all these techniques.
All right. Okay. Ready? All right, match my speed. Get it?
Dude.
Oh, nice. Awesome, dude.
You are so wrong.
All right, everybody, thank you so much for checking out the video. Hopefully you found it entertaining and informative. If you'd like some more personalized coaching, I have a private Facebook group that you could join through my Patreon. The link is in the description below. It's a community where you could interact with other riders trying to improve their technical riding ability. We exchange videos, photos, how-to tips. It's a great place to interact with other riders looking to improve their technical riding ability. So check that out, and until next time, get out there and be a boss.